Vince Gaetano is here, monstermortgage.ca. He is a mortgage expert. You can find him on social media at monstervinceg. And we're talking about forming a financial plan. And let's go through, Vince, some of the steps, because I think that sometimes it's the questions that help people sort of figure out where to start. So I guess the first step in forming a financial plan is figuring out who it's for.
Yeah, and that's really key. Like if you have a family, you're obviously planning for, everyone in the family. It could be kids' education plans. You may be looking to buy your first home for your family. If it's a couple, it could be, a vacation home or a trip or your wedding plan. So you really have to determine who it's for. And then once that's the case, you know who it's for. The key is let's collect all the necessary information to determine where you stand today. So you determine what your revenue is. So what is your income? What's coming in every week, every 2 weeks, every month? What are all the expenses that you have? So collect, like I said earlier, your bank statements, your credit card statements, all your loan statements, your bank account and investment accounts, RSPs, and list all the assets you have, cars, collectibles, property, and then write down what your goals are going to be. Make sure they're defined. You want to break them down as to when you want to achieve them. So you want to have timelines and make sure they're reasonable. Like, if you want to pay off your house and you can't do it in a year because you owe $250,000, you make $100,000 a year combined, that's not achievable. So you have to, make sure they're reasonable and achievable. And you want to always refer to them every 6 months. So that way, if your goals change or your priorities change, you can adjust them and amend them. Then you want to always look at what debts you have. Whenever you're trying to set goals, you want to eliminate the bad debt.
Let's talk about good debt versus bad debt. What does that mean?
It's a really good question, Barb, because a lot of people don't understand what that means. Good debt is when you're using debt to create wealth. So let's say you want to get an investment loan. So you borrow money to invest. That debt, the interest paid on it, is deductible against the income or the investment that it's pledged against. That's considered good debt. When it's non-deductible debt, I look at that as bad debt. Okay? So it's always best to pay off the bad debt first because the good debt's working for you. It's creating wealth for you, and that's the differentiator between the two.
How common is it that people have a lot of outstanding balance they're carrying on credit cards, or they've maxed out their credit cards?
Barb, it's very common. And with young adults, they're carrying a lot of student loan debt. They're getting started, so they probably have a car loan. They might use some lines of credits to furnish their new apartments and new living arrangements. So early on, when somebody starts their career, they're usually saddled with a lot of debt. And what we try to do, especially in my world, when they're coming looking to buy a home, sometimes it's not the right time to do it. So we set up a plan for them to achieve home ownership maybe a year or two from now if they could focus on getting rid of some debt, improving their credit. And to your point, carrying balances to their limit doesn't help your credit score. So getting rid of some of those high interest rate credit card debts is key, and making sure you're not utilizing the full extent of those limits, because that hurts you when they're calculating your credit score. So we do see quite a bit of it. That's why we do a lot of planning with our clients that are in these tough situations, because I always encourage people that are so eager to buy a home, don't get caught paying higher rates than you need to, because it comes to thousands and thousands of extra interest dollars you have to pay that isn't necessary if you plan properly. And I'll give you an example. On a $500,000 mortgage, if you're in the alternative space because you got some bad credit and you're not within the debt servicing guidelines, you could pay 4% interest, whereas you're seeing prime rates below 2%. So on a $500,000 mortgage, that's $10,000 more in interest a year.
Wow.
Right? And remember, we're paying our mortgages with after-tax income. So, if you're in a high tax bracket, you might have to earn $18,000 to pay 10 in interest costs beyond what you should be paying. So we do a lot of counseling in that regard to help people understand how important it is to bring that debt load to a manageable level and help them save money in the long term. Because banks love charging more than they need to.
Sure.
And they love extracting money out of your pocket. And that's hard-earned money. You've worked hard for it. So protect it and try to do what's right so you can minimize those borrowing costs and grow your wealth.
I've got a listener question for you, if I can. Somebody writes in a question for Vince. I'll be turning 55 next year. My income will be reducing then. I will not be able to afford my mortgage payments. What is Vince's opinion on reverse mortgages? My income ratio does not qualify me for a home equity line of credit mortgage as an option.
The reverse mortgage has become a more and more popular tool in today's day and age. You have to be minimum 55 years of age to qualify for one. And what it does is it determines what the value is of your home, and they will lend you a certain percentage depending on your age and the property type. And there aren't any payment obligations to the mortgage. They're optional. So they will accrue interest over time until you sell it. And it's becoming more and more popular. We're doing quite a few of them. A lot of seniors are using it as a financial planning tool, and there are some creative options available. And if your caller has any more details that they want to know about it, they could give my office a call, and I'd be more than happy to walk them through. One of the reverse mortgage lenders is Home Equity Bank. They have a tremendous and educational website, and they have some tools there to determine how much people qualify for. So it's becoming quite popular, and people want to stay in their homes and they want to stay in their communities. And with all the issues with COVID and long-term care issues, people are staying back in their homes, and they want to be in a familiar environment and don't want to sell. So it is becoming popular, and I think it's a really good tool for some people.
So we have a couple of minutes left, and we're talking about forming a financial plan. Vince Gaetano is here from monstermortgage.ca. You can find him on social media at monstervinceg. Let's talk briefly, if we can, about investment strategy. And, people don't have to have a ton of money in order to invest money, but the question is, where and in what and for how long?
Yes, and this is something that I think could take a little bit of time for people to determine what they're most comfortable with. And I always say you have to understand what your risk tolerance is and what your time horizon is for the use of that money. So, for example, if you have a short-term horizon where you're looking to buy a home in a couple of years and you need that money for that down payment, you're not going to get into a risky stock portfolio. You might get into something more bond-related that's more safe, or maybe a GIC, because you really can't risk having that $20,000 turn into $15,000 over a short period of time. And, there's so many different investment vehicles today, like, do you want to be a property owner and be a landlord? Do you want to get into the stock market? Do you want a managed mutual fund or an exchange-traded fund? There's so many tools, and understanding what your risk tolerance is to potential losses is so important, because if you have a long time horizon, your risk tolerance might be higher than most. If it's short, you may not have that risk tolerance. And depending how old you are, if it's for retirement and you're retiring in 5-10 years, do you really want to risk any potential blip in the market? You need that money for retirement, so you don't want to risk that. So that is so important, and there's some great tools in the marketplace with different investment companies that could monitor and gauge what your risk tolerance is, and they could form a portfolio that could be balanced, mixed, high risk, low risk, and give you a gauge as to what type of investments you should be holding.
We are out of time. Vince Gaetano, it was so great to have you here. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you so much. I would love to do that, Barb, and I thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Vince Gaetano, follow him on social media at monstervinceg. The website is monstermortgage.ca, and he is a mortgage expert. You can see him on CP24's Hot Property.